All right, guys, let's go ahead and get started.
Did you look at milestone 3? That should the two things you have to work on the milestone 3. And then you guys go on the source.
Guys, let's get started today. It's 6-2, week 6, day 2. Today, we're going to cover testing. Who here remembers anything we've said about testing? Someone tell me something. Phil.
Testing is tedious if you have a lot of things to test.
Ray? I agree with both these things. Yeah. On really big applications, pretty much any big company you work at, you're going to be required to write tests, guys. Because writing software is hard. We need help. Testing helps us to understand what our code does. When you guys did the JS cones, remember that? Way back in week 3? I think it was week 2. It was week 2. Oh, it was. In week 2, we did this thing called JS cones. Who here remembers that? We write expectations about some function. You know, we say we expect this to be truthy, we expect it to be falsy, expect it to be that. Quaz, this right here, man. You remember this? Yeah, this is just testing JavaScript code. It's testing our knowledge of JavaScript code that we write. That being said, testing gets way more complicated, okay? It gets way more difficult, and there are many other challenges that we need to overcome in order to do testing correctly. In today's class, guys, we're not going to cover every single kind of test, and we cannot demonstrate every single kind of test. They're just almost an infinite number of different tests that we can write. We can have unit tests, we can have integration tests, we can have acceptance tests, we have security tests, we can have performance tests. These are different types of tests that serve a specific type of goal. Take a guess what a performance testing does. Anyone take a guess? What's a performance test do?
Test the performance of the employee, the product,
It tests it tests the performance of our application. So for example, you can write some code that will make a request to your API 10,000 times in a second. Does your API work in that case? You know, I feel confident, I'll tell you the truth, I feel confident I could build almost any app. Almost, obviously not any app, right? I feel pretty confident I could build a lot of apps, right? That being said, I feel like performance is one of the things I'm kind of weak at, right? If 10,000 people came to my website at the same time and all requested data from our API, would the application continue to work? So that's just one type of test, a performance test, okay? There's also something called a stress test. Now that I think about it, performance testing and stress testing are different, right? So imagine if we had 10,000 people come to your API and then they all ask for different data, right? So how can we stress our API? How can we make our API have to perform really complicated stuff? So basically, just know that right now, like, we want you guys, go ahead.
So what happens if the API fails to...
So if the API fails, it'll just give back a 500 to the user, and then the browser will say, oh, failed to load, something like that. Most websites that we use, guys, have already been very, very well performance and stress tests. You can bet Google has been stress tests. Okay, I guarantee you 1 million people can go to Google right now and type in something, all different things, searching for data, and I guarantee you they'll all work. So know that the purpose of today is to just give you guys an introduction into testing. So in the future, whenever you guys are asked about it, you understand how it works with software development. Okay? But before we move forward, let's recap yesterday. You guys are professionals. You should be professional, okay? Remember, whenever we're writing code, we can't just throw it up there. We gotta help our teammates out. I don't know, as Scrum Master, and whenever you were reading the commits, could you understand every single thing that was going on for the group project? Most of the time? Yeah, what?
Because there's several commits, they're not very specific, they very general.
It's very general, right? So the underlying issue here is that even though this project that we just most recently did, which project we do, guys?
Canvas.
The group project, my bad. the GitHub issue page, right? That one we only worked on for a couple days, guys, right? How many commits did we have? I actually saw this group. You guys had a bunch of commits, like 80 commits, something like that. 60 commits. That's a good thing. I'm happy you guys are doing commits a lot. But know that in the future, right, when you guys start working on a project for an extended period of time, all the commits start like kind of merging together. And it's hard to determine when the application went from 1.0 to 1.0.1, etc. And pull requesting is probably the solution to this. It helps us understand how our code bases change over time. I promise you, each and every one of you in your careers, and you've actually already done this, you're gonna build something, it's going to work, and then it's going to break later. That's going to happen. Why? Because we're never ever done building software. Software is always getting better, right? So I found this video last night, and I'll show you why React was built by Facebook. This is in 2014. This is Facebook. Some of their lead engineers. Yes.
I still don't understand the way they identify the version. Like, why do we have to be numbers?
Okay, so who does anyone here know? What's the difference between 1.0 what's this? Does anyone here know this right here? 1.0.0. What would that indicate? It's all about versioning, okay? But I'll give you guys a quick introduction. I'm so happy that you guys mentioned this. I remember I learned this a while back. So the first number indicates a almost completely different application. So if we were to kick it up to 2.0, it's almost to the level that someone has rewritten the entire application. You know, that's why I like Web 2.0, Web 3.0. The first number very rarely changes, no matter what company you guys work at, okay? The second number, let's pretend that we update the second number. 2.1.0. The middle number indicates that a significant amount of code has changed, yet it is still the application. That being said, because a significant amount of code has changed, right, we expect certain things to break. Okay, this is called a major update. Now this is called 2.0, I forgot the exact terminology, but this 2.0, this is a new version of the application. Just like, imagine that you just threw away all your code and you did it all again. That's pretty much what it means. 2.1.0 means that you fixed a lot of things, some APIs are different, certain features might not work until other users update. Okay? And the last one is 2.1.1 is minor bug fixes. Anything where you push a new update, there's no significant change. That's pretty much how it works. And we'll look at VSA App Store. They had a release, what? May 22nd? Why is this in Vietnamese? Fuck, man, I can't read this. Would someone say where it says release history? Where does it say release history?
Right there.
I don't know which one says release history. There's one of these that says release. Why is this in Vietnamese? This one? This one? So you guys can see this is the pattern that we chose at VSA, right? So I don't know. When I joined VSA, it was already 6 something. Okay, it was already 6 something. Oh, my bad. Was it? I forgot. Sometimes your company will fuck up. You know, someone will accidentally use the wrong version. Blah blah blah. It actually doesn't matter. This number does not matter. All you gotta do is understand for yourself, right? Whenever you go to your own commit history, right, you're gonna see 6.1.1, and then the next commit you're gonna see 6.1.2. And that's just gonna let you know, oh, okay, at this point in code, this is where we made a production build, and then we upload it to the App Store. And I remember on 6.1.1, we didn't have this problem, right? So this is all about understanding our code and our history and how we're traversing up and down it. Because there's gonna be times, I promise you guys, you're gonna build software and it's gonna break later on. And then someone's gonna come to you and be like, hey, how long ago did this break? Does anyone know? And to communicate with the team, you gotta be able to say something. You can't say like, I don't know, it's like 4 weeks ago, you know? That's not helpful information. You gotta say, well, I'm looking at version history 6.0.1, you know, I remember testing this, I have this build on this phone, I'm testing it, that feature does not manifest, okay? So now we can determine that throughout, from 6.0.1 to 6.0.3, we had a problem. Now let's look at our commit history, and let's see how many commits. How many commits were there between these two versions? Who worked on these commits? What files were changed? Which features were implemented? Okay? All right, guys, sorry for that spill. So, version control, we can talk about this for 6 weeks. One day you guys are gonna be a technical lead, and someone's gonna tell you guys that something broke, and you're gonna wish you had a version. You don't want to see a list of 100 commits on GitHub. It's impossible to determine what's going on. Okay, today we're gonna talk about testing again. There used to be this trend of developers. We write code, right? We write code and we let someone else figure out whether or not it works. Maybe like 15 years ago, 20 years ago. But over the last, in my professional career, testing has been pretty much accepted as like everyone should write tests, right? Yes, there are people whose job it is to test your code. They're called quality assurance people. They literally, every single time you make a release and you write down what we did, right? What they do is they open up the app and they click that button. There's someone whose job it is to do that. The bigger the company that you guys work at, the more people whose job it is to do that. So there's gonna be some people you guys are gonna hate talking to, right? Not hate them as a person, but you're gonna hate talking to them because every single time they come and talk to you, they're telling you that something doesn't work, right? I promise you this is gonna happen. And they're not gonna tell you that it doesn't work on your screen because you're gonna see it work on your screen. You're gonna say, oh, it looks good, it looks good, but look at my machine. And then you're gonna have to say something like, oh, did you try Chrome? Fuck, did you open it in Chrome? What's the browser? If you're building mobile apps, you're gonna say, are you testing on Android or on iOS? Can you repeat the test? Can you show me again? Show me it failed. Just like I asked you guys to say, show me. You guys are gonna need to do that. Because if you guys don't do that well, guys, you're gonna waste a lot of your time chasing down bugs that do not exist. And so what I'm trying to say is when I tell you guys these skills of certain things about seeing evidence and seeing taking it one step at a time, one day you guys are gonna need to tell your QA and QC this. You're gonna say, hey guys, can you show me with this working? I've had this happen so many times in my life in which QA and QC tried to show me a bug that could not be reproduced. They said, oh, there's some bug. I don't know how to make it happen. So that's almost like it's a really nightmare. But anyway, just know that now, guys, our job as software developers is to write code that will test our code. It's not, we can't say someone else didn't test it because everyone's job is to make the software run. If you work at a tech company, all of you are involved in this. Everyone has this responsibility. And us being the developers, we're gonna be the ones who write the code. We're gonna be the ones who write the code. We're gonna be the ones who write tests for the code. We're gonna be the ones who are most highly qualified to actually make sure the software works. So that's really one of our really most important. I've heard you guys say this. You guys have heard me say this before, right? Your bosses don't care how the code works. You guys have heard me say that, right? I promise you, if you guys are working at a company that has, I don't know, $10 million in revenue, a CEO that's in charge of 300 people, he's not going to read your code. He's just going to want to see it work. He's not going to care if you guys he or she is not going to care if you guys copied and pasted that code from a previous project. That does not matter. What matters is that it works. Does everyone understand that? Yeah. Everyone, raise your hand if you understood what I just said. Vidam, what did I just say? Come on, man, you gotta pay attention.
It doesn't matter.
I'm saying that I was just saying that the end goal is that you have to build working software. Okay, that's the end goal. Nothing else matters. You guys can show up early to work every single day. You can stay late, right? If everyone's supposed to be there at 10 and you get there at 8 o'clock and everyone leaves at 5 and you stay until 9, even if you put in more hours, guys, if the software does not work, you're not doing your job. Okay? So, a second ago, you guys heard me talk about how there are many different types of testing, right? So, we'll just start with the 3 most prominent types of tests that you guys are probably going to write, okay? So we're going to talk manual. Ideally speaking, who here knows what manual testing is? Yes. Kwa, tell me.
Oh, what?
Tell me what it is. What is manual testing?
That's what you write the code,
I think the people that
Exactly, both of you are right. You literally have someone whose job it is to sit there and click that button and then type in something and then sign out and then sign back in and then create an issue. Okay? That's what you guys have been doing this whole time. Okay? But just know that this way is flawed, man. It's impossible to continue doing this effectively. Right? You guys haven't started working with many different types of accounts yet. Imagine you had an admin account that could do certain things, and then a regular user account that could do certain other things. It would be almost impossible to test all the different features that can occur. I'm telling you, it's really, really difficult. Doing things by manually testing, I promise you guys, is a nightmare. You guys can read books about stuff like this. Google it one day, and you guys will see. You guys will understand. Okay. So that's why manual testing is at the top of the pyramid, because we want to do that the least possible. You guys are devs, man. You guys get paid a lot of money, or going to be very soon. You guys cannot be spending half your day sitting there clicking buttons. Okay, you guys are too skilled for that. I'm dead serious. You guys are your company is losing if they're paying you guys to sit there and click buttons around. Click a button. Does the screen turn blue? Does the screen turn red? That's not the best way to doing it. Beneath that, something we call integration tests. These ones are, so this one with integration, this one I can say that there's a lot of, this one's kind of, no one really knows, not no one really knows. This one is the one that there's a lot of, what do you have to say when people are arguing? There's no consensus. There's no consensus on how much we should integration tests. Because these integration tests are fragile. They break really easily, right? An integration test is basically say, hey, does this one part of my application talk to that one part of the application correctly, right? Does it do what we expect it to do?
It's like console log, right?
Kinda, yeah. I mean, the console log can be used in so many different places. It's so useful. So just know that integration testing is kind of like, hey, does my application make a request to the API like I expect it to? If the user click this button, right? Does it make an API request? Does the API request give me back what I expect it to? Because guys, we've only been building front-end applications so far. Well, predominantly front-end applications. But just know when we work at a company, we're gonna have teams that who do different parts of the application. And all these different parts need to work together. Our API team needs to also work with our front-end team. These parts of the application need to talk to each other. Okay? And lastly, we have unit testing. This is the most widely used type of testing. And it's just, a unit test is just to test an individual part of our application. An individual part of our application, in terms of React, it could be a function. Does the function do what I expect it to do when I give it this argument? Right? We can write a test that does that. Does the component render what we expect it to render? Does it have the elements inside it that we think it should have? Does it have the correct number of elements based on a certain data? So for example, guys, let's put our heads together on this one, right? Let's imagine the candidates page from yesterday, okay? The candidates page from yesterday, imagine we have 5 candidates, right? How many cards should we see? In our data, right, that we get from our API, imagine we got 5 candidates only. How many cards should we see?
5.
Why not 6? Because it doesn't make any fucking sense to have 6. There are 5 candidates, there should be 5 cards. Okay? So we can write tests that show this, that can prove this. And this will be a way in which we can say, look, my code is documented, it runs, leave me alone. Okay? This is literally what you guys are gonna get to say to people one day. And know that the better you guys do this, the more professional you guys seem. Or we will communicate ourselves. People like hearing about tests. So let's think about a library that we used a couple times now. Moment.js. Who here sees how many unit tests they have? You want to see the number?
On the right side.
They have 140,000 different tests that Moment runs. Yeah, it's crazy, right? It's just like, for example, this one right here is for Africa, right? So they have to test each format. If it's given a date that looks like this, and the the programmer wants it to format like this, I expect it to look like that. They have 140,000 tests like this. Obviously, one person did not write these tests, okay? Obviously. But a whole army of people got together and just wrote a whole bunch of tests together. Just think of it that way. And all these tests made sure that now when everyone wants to update moment.js, they know that they're not breaking anything. Could you imagine having to manually test 140,000 different outcomes for a function? Think about that, man. That's fucking crazy to think about. How long would that take? I can't even imagine how long that would take doing that manually. You know, so just know that, like, remember when we do something like moment.js, and then we call the function, and then we give it an argument, it created that string? There's a test that says, oh, this should take a string. It has to accept a string. It cannot be an object. And then there's another test that says, okay, if they give us a string as the argument, and then they do .LLL, it should look like February 6, 1987, something like that, right? So this is a very serious part of our jobs. Okay, guys? Any questions about unit testing? I actually do expect this. You guys are going to spend most of your time writing unit tests because, once again, integration tests are very fragile. They break all the time. Another one might be Facebook sign-in. Facebook sign-in often changes, right? They're constantly changing their API. They say that you're not allowed to do this anymore. Someone is yelling at us. We can't share you this information. You know, blah, 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 blah. Even things like status codes. I've seen this happen a lot. Whenever we get a response from our API, a lot of times, instead of looking at messages, I've seen you guys look at messages, right? I've seen you guys look and say, oh, response.message is equal to not found, then we'll do that. Does anyone here, who did that? I remember one of you guys did that. Yeah, was it Ray? Yeah. I remember one of you guys did something like response.message, if response.message equals to not found, we'll do this.
No.
Or no, yeah.
Yeah.
So know that, like, for example, like that right there, let's just say that, like, someone on our API team says, like, oh man, this message is not very helpful, man. I gotta tell fucking Ray, like, what the problem is, man. He keeps doing this, you know, like, let's give him a better message so he knows what to do, right? So if they were to change that, right, that message, your application would break, right? Right? Because you had an if data response.message equal to not found. What if they said, oh, we didn't find it by ID, please pass a email. We can find the user by email. Something like that. Okay, good companies always have tests. I would say that's true, okay? Once again, think about Chrome. Look how many different buttons we can click. That is crazy. Could you imagine testing all that, man? It's fucking crazy. Ridiculous. That being said, though, I don't want you guys to spend a substantial amount of time doing this, okay? The truth is that, like, until, I would say, like, man, you guys need like a year or two just building software before you get really, really good at testing, writing tests. Because we got to understand every single little step. So I don't want you guys to spend too much time. Just know that, like, this is something was going to be expected of you guys one day. If you guys work at a big company, you know, they're going to want you to write tests. And lastly, we care because we want our software to work, okay? You guys are gonna feel good when you guys see green on your tests. Just like those JS clones, like when you guys see green, you're so confident. You guys know that, like, oh man, I know this works, man. I got evidence right here. Just like one day whenever you guys build APIs, right? You guys are gonna have a postman, and then you're gonna click a button, and then you're gonna show someone, say, look, it responded with a 200. I don't care what you're saying, like you have a problem right now. Just like Quad, just like yesterday, remember? We saw Postman work, right? We knew that API worked correctly. The problem was with us on the front end. We did something wrong. And our API team is going to give us Postman one day and just like, I don't know what to tell you, man. This API works. You figure out something else. You know, like I'm done here. Let me know when you have a serious problems. Another thing about testing is that, like, as we write code, guys, I kind of imagine that, like, our code starts to look kind of like these wires, right? We don't really know where the data is. Like we know that it's probably gonna go here, and then like it's connected over there, you know, and there's a whole bunch of data going back and forth between different places, right? And we have this habit as developers, right? That once we get it working, we don't want to touch it anymore. We say, oh shit, it works now. Let's not change the arguments, let's not change the function call, let's just leave it. It's working, okay? It's working. That's what Loy said, it works. That's all they care about. But the fact of the matter is that like our projects, as they become more complicated, this problem becomes worse. You know, it becomes a lot worse. And even like, so I forgot we skipped over this. Even at Facebook, they face these challenges, okay? Let's just watch this quick video. Why is this not working? Fuck. No. Oh, my headphones are.
And this was one of our more polite requests. And let's use a real-world example, a chat interface at Facebook. We knew that we had a problem with chat in 2011 when we introduced the subscribe button on our blog, and the first comment on that blog post was, please improve chat system, with 898 likes. And this was one of our more polite requests. We got a lot of comments that would just say fix chat, and that became a pretty frequent refrain in all of our user comments. So how do we get to this place? How do we get to the point where we were annoying our users so much, they just wanted us to fix chat? They didn't care what else we were launching, they didn't care we were improving, they just wanted us to fix chat. Well, to answer that, we have to go through sort of the chat feature as it evolved. We started with something pretty simple. You have a chat tab, shows a list of messages. Whenever you want to...
Shows a list of messages. Come on, someone tell me what that looks like in data. Tell me in code what that chat looks like.
The Bible.
The Bible?
A lot of shit. A lot of words on the page.
No, man. We got an array. It has some objects. The objects say who's it from. It has an avatar URL. It has a body. It probably hasn't created that. Okay, there's a bunch of shit in there. There's an ID, there's a bunch of shit in that one screen, okay?
Whenever you get a new chat message, you just append it. It's pretty simple. The code is pretty manageable. Later on, we also launched the messages jewel, which shows you the number of threads that have unseen messages on them. That was kind of developed independently from the chat tab. But whenever a new message comes in, we also want to handle that unseen count. So this code gets a little bit more complicated. We have an unseen thread count that we want to bump every time we get a new message. And if we think that the user's looking at it, we also want to decrement it. A couple months later, we also introduced the larger messages view. And with that, we made this handler even more complicated. This is what we had before, and now we have to sort of account for the messages view and decrement the count under the right conditions if we think the user is looking at either one of the views. So what are the problems here? One is that the code really has no structure. It's very imperative, that makes it fragile, and we lose a lot of the original intent behind it. It's hard to tell just by looking at the code that you want to keep the messages view and the chat tab view in sync. It's hard to tell that you only want to increment and then decrement. You don't want to do either of those more than once. And as we add more features, this code just only gets longer. And having something imperative like this basically led us to the situation where we had our most annoying chat bug happen over and over.
So the big takeaway in her talk here, guys, is that basically your application, you always start off very simple, and then it always gets more complicated. And that's what we introduced testing, because testing tests to make sure that as we're making things more complicated, we didn't break anything that previously worked. Because remember, man, we have to build more complicated applications. We cannot build something so simple and say we're done. Well, we can, but then we're probably not going to be working at that company very long. We can. We could say that I'm not working on this anymore. I'm not making this more complicated. Yeah, we could say that, but we're not going to be working at that company very long. Okay? Every single person that pays you guys money is going to want more. You guys are going to build something. He's going to say, oh, I want it now. When I click this button, it does that instead. Or when I hover my mouse, it shows me this instead. There's no such thing. You'll never, ever be done building an application. And just know, I'm sorry that this is redundant, but this is how you're gonna feel. I felt this way many times in my life. I know you guys have done that in your own code, okay? like your own code is in there. You're like, fuck, man, I just changed this one thing. What the fuck? You guys have done that in your own code. Now, imagine doing that with someone else's code, okay? And then imagine that person's code, right, is not in one file. It's across 50 files, right? And then now imagine it's not one person's code. Now imagine it's code from like 10 people over the last 3 years. 10 different people over the last 3 years. Yeah, it gets a lot more confusing. So notice, so just think to yourselves that testing, it helps us kind of alleviate this problem. That being said, guys, I'm not a huge supporter of tests. Okay, I'm not a huge supporter of tests. I think they're good. I think they're a good way to show that you're a fucking pro and you deserve to work here. And they'd be lucky to pay you money. I believe that. Okay. That being said, tests also hold us back. They stop us from releasing to production and building new things. But we don't want to find ourselves in the position of that cat. Okay. Is that a cat? It's a cat, right? We don't want to find ourselves in the position, because I have been in the position in which my boss has asked us to just test manually again. I was like, Keith, we can do that, man, but just know that, like, for the next year, I'm not going to be adding any new features. And at that point, he was like, okay, we don't need the test, but just know that there's a whole bunch of schools of thought of this, guys. So let's move forward. Surprise! JavaScript has a ton of testing frameworks. And they all serve different things. We just talked about this. Security testing, penetration testing. There's a bunch of different types of testing. We're not going to go into detail about all of them, guys. We're going to go into detail about 2 of them. One of them is called Jest, which is a test runner. It's a tool used to just run our tests. And then the other one is a library called Enzyme. Enzyme is a library to write tests. It gives us a bunch of functionality. Any questions so far?
No.
Surprise, guys! We should be writing tests. Not we should. We can write tests before we write our code. And in a few moments, I'm going to demonstrate that. Okay? There are many different ways that school of thoughts on this. Once again, okay? Testing is a good way to help you think about your code. But to be honest with you, in my personal opinion, you guys aren't at that level yet. Like, that's my personal opinion. It's like a race, like giving a 13-year-old girl a car and saying, like, hey, you need nitro. Like, yeah, like, I'm sure that, like, she could use nitro to make her car faster, but I think she probably needs to solve some other problems before she needs to worry about that. She needs to know how to, like, steer correctly, press the gas correctly, brake correctly, and then afterwards she needs to worry about nitro. Everyone here knows what nitro is, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Pi, you know what nitro is?
Fast and Furious.
Okay, I'm just making sure. Yes, that is useful, but you gotta understand how to drive the car before you worry about, like, adding nitro to make you drive better or faster. Like, that's just like one part of the problem. You gotta solve a bunch of other problems first. Some of you are actually gonna really like this. Some people love writing tests. I don't know who that is yet, to be honest with you.
Do you make money writing tests?
Yeah, there's software developers that just go to work and write tests every single day. That's all they do, every single day. They write a test and say, hey, does this work like I expect it to? Blah, 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 blah. Like I said, you started talking about writing tests. Can you make money writing tests? Know that there's people who get paid money to just click buttons all day. Quality assurance, quality control. These are real positions, guys. Hey, let's go look at IT, Vic. Oh, here it is. QA. 3 testers, game testers, QA, QC, blah, 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 blah. These are all fucking manual tester. And he just goes to the office every single day. And he's given a list of user stories. He's like, all right, let's just see what these work. And they click. But you don't want to be this guy, guys. You guys want to be the developers. These guys don't get paid that much money. It's actually, I would say it's kind of a hard job. It takes a lot of time. But at the end of the day, these people just don't make that much money because it's not, obviously it's hard and it takes work. It takes time, right? But like I've heard I'm sure you guys have heard me say this before. I think the biggest problem every software company has is how to build software quickly, cheaply, and with good quality. And I think all the 3 of those things, if you can solve one of those 3 problems, how to build software quicker, how to build software better, or how to build it cheaper, you guys are gonna make a shit ton of money. There are a bunch of companies in Vietnam who are trying to work on that. They have an army of smart people at those companies, and they still don't know the best way. Okay, so just know that that you guys can. It doesn't really matter which one you do, as long as you guys are involved in that process. And if you ask me, the best way to be involved in that process is to write code yourself. Okay, and this is not just Vietnam. This is America as well for us, or Canada. Yeah, Westerners. My bad. Sorry. I'm just trying to say this is a worldwide phenomenon. It's a worldwide phenomenon. How can you build this software better? Think about it. If you have an army, if you have a team of 10 people, right? You have a 10 people. Each one of them makes $1,000. If this software takes 1 month longer, how much money did your company just lose? More than 10,000. You got to pay for office, insurance, taxes, food, benefits. Right? They want to build the software as quickly as possible. That's one of the best things you can do. If someone says to build it in a month, build it in 2 weeks. I guarantee you your boss is gonna love you if you can do that. Obviously it's hard. Obviously the probability is that if you say it takes a month, you're probably gonna take 2 months. Okay? But just know that the end objective is to build working software as quickly and as efficiently as you can. And a part of that is like when I say build it quickly and efficiently, I mean it has to work and it has to not break in the future. Because if you say that you built it in 2 weeks and it works, and then 1 month down the line it breaks, that's almost as bad. I would say almost as bad. Okay, enough of that lecturing. So for testing, guys, testing follows this very simple pattern. It's just 3 steps. Okay, write a test and watch it fail. It'll be red. Write just enough code to make it pass, and then refactor. And then we do this again and then again and again, and it helps us really understand our code very well. It's the same three steps. TDD, test-driven development. You guys have heard me talk about CDP, CDD, copy-driven development, CDD. Well, this is TDD, test-driven development. I'm going to show you guys this in just a couple minutes. So know that the objective of writing and developing in TDD is to just think about our code in little itty bitty pieces. And you guys have heard me say that a lot. I want us to have little bitty things, okay? I want a little bitty component. I want to have a couple litty bitty functions. I want these functions to return a little bit of data. Well, this one function is, give me a little itty bitty data. Take this whole list, okay? Just give me only the favorite colors of the objects. That's what I want. Only give me the name of the genres. I want a bunch of little functions. And testing helps us do that. Writing tests helps us do that. Helps us think that way. I don't know if it's, right now, once again, you always know where to start. I don't know if you guys are there yet. But anyway, testing is actually a lot of fun. I think it's hard at first, guys, but once you guys get good at it and you guys start seeing green, I promise you guys are gonna have a lot of fun. I think it might be one of the funnest things I've ever done. It's just like the JS clones. Remember, guys, the JS clones. You change a little something, it was red, now it's green. So like it makes us feel really good. There's like actual we feel like there's oh man, I made actual progress. I may not have gotten a raise, but the code works. That's my job. And I know if I do my job, the probability of me getting a raise increases.
So it's almost like a console log, but
Kinda. It's like a console log that logs everywhere we want it to be, and we can run 1,000 of them at once. What would you say, Kwa? What was your hand up for? You raise your hand?
No.
Okay. So just know that testing is also writing code. Now it's guys, what we're about to show you guys is code. It does this. It expects that. It expects this to be that. Blah blah blah. It's a type of testing. You guys, we're not going to cover this in detail. We want you guys to read the documentation, and as you see fit, read more. There's going to be different parts of our application that we need to build and we need to test. So we need to do research on this. Okay. And as a general guideline, each test should only test one thing. You guys will see what I mean in just a few moments. Each test needs to test exactly one thing. And we want to have 1,000 little itty bitty tests that test 1,000 itty bitty little things. Some people go nuts, okay? Here's some warning. Some people go over, this is how I feel. I feel that some people spend way too much time testing and then they don't actually build working software. So that's kind of stupid. if you ask me, right? Imagine you took so long getting ready for a dinner, right? Dinner's at 7. You spent 3 hours getting ready for dinner. It's now 10 o'clock. Okay, dinner's over. Everyone left. Don't go crazy with it. That's my personal opinion. I want to see working software. I promise you. Like for example, at Best Red, he didn't ask me to show him any tests. He wanted to see working software. He wanted to see my app in production. He wanted to see when I clicked the button, it went to this screen. That's the type of stuff people want. That's the type of people what we call them as decision makers, the people who's in charge of deciding who to hire. That's the end goal. They want to see working software. And testing is only one tool, one small tool in that process, okay? But you do need to know it. Okay, so today we're gonna let's go and jump into our lab. Today we're gonna do test-driven development for a couple of components, specifically 2 components. And these components will be responsible for listing some items. In this case, we're gonna say that it's a list of items for sale, but as you can imagine, they could be any types of items. They could be movies, they could be users, they could be Pokemon, they could be students. I don't know, they could be GitHub issues, it doesn't matter. Okay guys, so, oops, wrong one. Okay, so I already initiated our app, right? I didn't want to do this on screen because it takes a lot of time. So, let's go ahead and jump over to this documentation. So I'm gonna go ahead and just do some setup steps, okay? I'm gonna copy this line right here. What am I doing here, guys? Someone please tell me what we're doing right here. Installing?
Enzyme.
Exactly, we're installing some libraries. Anything that says npm install, we're just going to the internet and says, give me this package. I'm gonna use this later. I should have already run this one. But I just want you to know, just for example, in the future, when you guys read a document that says, go get this package, install this library, that's what they want you guys to do. Go find the package on npm and run npm install. And sometimes when like in books, like they'll link you to something, but sometimes people won't link you. They'll just simply say, install this package. And you guys need to know what they're saying. Go out to npm, find this package, find the correct name, the dashes, everything included, install it. And where should you run npm install? In your project, obviously. Okay? All right, so we're running it. It's still installing. So there's some, just like with Bootstrap, guys, there's some additional steps, okay, to set up. Not every single package is just automatically set up for free. So we're gonna create a new file, like our instructions say. Okay, I'm in the wrong folder. Let's open up our folder. We're gonna look at source, and then we create a new file called setuptest.js. We're gonna copy all this in here into this file. We'll save it. Okay, that looks good. Guys, this is just basically some setup. That's all we're doing. We're setting up our test suite. Okay. Okay, so now in our app.js, we're gonna write our first failing test. No, actually, let's look at the first test that's written. So we can run npm test. Okay, so it says, our test suite says, hey, no test found related to files changed since last commit. So we haven't actually written any tests. So let's go ahead and copy over this code snippet right here, and we're gonna put it in app.test.js. All right, that looks good. We can run it. And we can see, guys, what's the screen say? We failed a test. We failed a test. So let's look at the structure of our test, okay? Oh, I actually installed this tool. And when you guys read the lab, there's a tool that VS Code has, an extension. It actually helps out a lot. If you can figure it out, you should call Enzyme that can figure it. Interesting. Why is this not working? Save. Expected true to be false. Okay, guys, my bad. It is working correctly. I don't know why this warning right here, to be honest with you. Okay, guys, so basically every single test will have this basic structure. What does this look like, guys? What is it right here? Anyone? What is it right here?
It's a function.
It's a what?
It's the name of the function, right?
What does
Yes, it's the name of a function, correct. But what if I delete all this? What does that look like? It is a function, and we can call it. Say again?
is it like this?
This is not a function. This is an object. Typically, this is an object, yeah. So it is simply a function. Someone here look at this code and tell me how many arguments are we giving this function? How many arguments does this give in this function? 2. What's the first argument? First argument is a string. What's the second argument? It is just a function. What tells you that this is a function as the argument? The comma? But what tells you that the second argument is a function? The fat arrow, okay? So that's how they work, okay? It's a function called it, parentheses. We give it 2 arguments. The first one is a string. It simply tells you what the fuck this test tests, okay? So that shows up here, right? This describes the test for you so that in the future, when you run 1,000 different tests, you can quickly determine what the fuck this test is doing. Does that make sense, everyone? What would you say? What did you just say?
Can you repeat the last one?
The first argument inside of this test is a string. This string is simply explaining to the reader who's looking at our console, what does this test do? So imagine if I delete this and I say, hello, this is a test of something. If I save it, I expect this to change right here.
Yeah.
Okay, save it. Does that make sense, everyone?
Yes.
The second argument is a function. This function will simply run some code. And this code will test what we want to have happen. Yeah, it's going to test what we want to have happen. So this is free magical thing called shallow. You guys need to, we need you, if you guys really want to understand this more, then we can read the documentation. But shallow is just something we have to call on each one of our components, okay? And then we assign it to a new variable, wrapper. And then we can run a bunch of different functions that we get from Enzyme for free off of this, okay? For example, we can say first H1, or find H1 first. So basically what line 7 says is like, hey, this component app, once you wrap it, once you give it this free magical stuff that we need it to have, we want to run a new function on it called find H1. And we want to find the first H1. And we want to stick that in a variable for header. Can you please bookmark that? Because we're going to need to do something with that in a second. Okay? Say again?
When you use find, or when you use
So I can tell you that find is looking at our DOM node and it's saying, hey, go find something. Go find an HTML element with H1. Go find me an H1. I don't think find right here is what you guys think it is. I understand what you're saying. You're saying that if it's a raw JavaScript find method, it will only find 1. I understand that. But what I'm trying to say is I'm pretty confident that find right here it's been overwritten. Okay? They overwrote find. Because for example, right? Think about this. What can you call find on? Can I do this right here?
Can you start the app?
You want to start it?
Can you start the app to see how it looks like before that?
We're doing test-driven development. We want to write the test before we start the app. Okay? That's the purpose of the lab.
How do you know that the header is, why do we need to test the name of the site?
This is a very simple example to show you how a test is structured. Later on, I don't expect you guys to test headers. But I'm showing you I can't think of a simpler way to show this.
Because I just thought there was something wrong with the headers.
So right now we just created a new application, right? So like we expect to have a header, but like what's the problem that we're gonna run into? God damn it. When we generate this application, do we have a header?
No.
So what does that indicate? Is that possibly why our test is failing? We say that, oh shit, our application and our app component, we expect to have a header in there. We expect to find a header. We need to find at least one. That's what line 7 is saying. Hey component, find H1 and find the first one. Okay? And when we look at this now, we can see that this fails. The reason why this is failing is because our application has exactly 0 H1s. We have no headers in here. So let's fix it. Oops. So we'll change our application. Hello world. Should this test fail now? Pass now, guys?
I don't think so. Because Hello World not my e-commerce site.
Exactly. Hill, thank you. So let's save it. And we can see that the test ran and this code header that contains my e-commerce site to be true failed. So just know that header.contains is saying, hey, I'm a function. I take an argument. My argument is a string that I expect to find inside of this H1. So how can we fix this?
Hello to my e-commerce site.
We could do that. We could also do this one. This contains hello world.
Hey, what now?
Hey.
Line 7, can you change first, like second, third, fourth, all that?
Line 7, can we do what?
On line 7, after the H1, the dot first, can you change that to any number?
Yes, I think so, yeah. I'm pretty confident because there's another exercise which we do something kind of similar. So, but I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't try to change line 7, I'll be honest with you, I don't know. Let's see if we can do second. All right, fuck it, let's do it right now. You wanna see second right here, right?
Yeah, can you make a second?
Okay, hold on. So let's do first, let's just see this. You guys see that it passed, right? First pass, why did it pass? Because the header, we're saying on line 8, like, look, I expect this header to contain some text. The reality is that we expected to say this right here, but I cheated a little bit. I said, let's do the exact opposite. Let's change the test. Typically, that's not what we want to do. We want to write a test that has all the dummy data that we want. But it's not going to be dummy data, okay? It needs to be actually real, like sort of real data. A test that don't have, building an application that doesn't have data that's like kind of like what you expect it to look like, well, it's like very difficult to understand. Okay, like I want you guys to always put in good data whenever you guys are testing. So we're gonna say my e-commerce site. So we expect the H1 is gonna have this exact string. Okay, so we save it, we run it. Is this running? Oops. Save it, run it. Okay, this failed. It's because I didn't save somewhere. Save. All right, so it failed. It ran. It passed. My bad. It passed. The test passed. So as a quick recap, what happened, guys? We imported some magic. We did not want to build a whole new testing framework. We did not want to build React from scratch. And a whole army of people that are better than us did that. We don't want to reinvent the wheel up here on lines 1 through 3. Okay? And then on line 5, we called a function, the it function. We passed it 2 arguments, a string as the first argument. The second argument was a function. What did we do in this function? We used this magic that we got from Jest, or from Enzyme, on one of the components that we personally built. This is where our code begins. Well, I guess it could begin on line 5 where we describe the test. I guess that's also our code. But know that we simply took one of our components and we wrapped it, or we called a function shallow that was then given to us by Enzyme, and its argument was one component. Afterwards, what it basically did is it just took our component and it wrapped some magic around it for us, okay? The truth is, I'm not sure how all this works, right? But it just basically gave us our component some free code that we could do. Afterwards, we took that component and we found an H1 element inside of it. And specifically, we found the first one. The last line of code might be the most important. Line 8. What does this look like? What does expect look like to you guys? Expect is a function. It's a function. We call that function and we give it an argument. What is the argument in this case? It's header that contains my e-commerce site. You guys can imagine this being like my array dot includes, and then we give it an argument. We say, hey, does this array include this one thing? Do you guys remember that? Does anyone remember using includes? Okay? It's kind of like that. And remember, include gives us back the array. But in this case, it's going to give us back a Boolean, true or false. But like with all things in a program, there are 50 billion different ways we can do this, okay? 50 billion different ways. And there's probably a bunch of function calls that you guys could give me 5 years to try to study testing, and I wouldn't remember them all. I still have to Google them, and I still have to read documentation. Okay, guys? All right, so we've gotten, oh, let me do one thing. Let's do the one thing that Phil wanted to do. Let's see what would happen here. We check it the second, and we can see that it fails because it could not find a second H1. Type error. My bad. Actually, no, look. It says that second is not a function. So I don't think we can do that.
Put the number inside
Right parentheses? Second? That's spelled second, right?
First, yeah.
What do you want to do?
First, and then keep the first. Keep that first, and then put a number in parentheses.
What number?
Number, not string.
1?
Yeah. Has to.
No, relevant.
So guys, notice that testing is really difficult, man. There's a lot of things that we can do wrong. Like like I said, I'm not a huge fan of it. I would much rather you guys be writing out apps, building them. Like sometimes our apps give us first false positives. That's a real thing. It's saying, oh, this works. This is like super advanced stuff that we're getting into now, guys. Okay? Super advanced stuff. I'm not 100% sure why this is passing. I feel like this should be failing. Let's see. Let's delete this one. Let's see what happens. Okay, it fails. It could not find. Maybe this works exactly how you expected. Maybe it does find the first one. Okay, let's move forward. Okay. So in the lab, what's the next test that we want to write? Okay. So we can see that we're gonna. I went ahead and showed this. Hey, let's just go ahead and write it. Fuck it. So we want to write an additional test. What do we do, guys? Well, let's just set it up first. Set it up just like we set up our components without thinking sometimes. We got to call the it component, the it function. We got to give its first argument a description. We don't know what that description is right now. And we're going to give it a second argument, a function. I want to write a test that makes sure that our app component renders one component inside of it. That's what the objective is. Because almost all of our app components will render at least one component inside of it, right? And our app right here, right? Don't we almost always have like, okay, now I want you to render product list, right? Or maybe nav bar, that's one, right? You know, we can do something like that. But in this case, we're gonna do product list, okay? We save it. What's the problem we have right now, guys? On line 9.
We didn't import this.
We didn't import it, correct? But how can we import something we haven't defined yet?
I have to create it.
Exactly. So now we're going to create this component. So we're going to do this the correct way. We create a new folder called components. We'll create a new file called product.list.js. Okay. Now we're going to create this component. We're going to say product list. It's not going to take any arguments. It's going to return, I don't know, a div. This div is going to have a UL in it. right? It's gonna have some LIs. God damn, I can't read right now. Okay, we'll copy this over. Then we're going to export default product list. That seem good? Interesting. We're creating a product list because guess what? On line 9, we expect our app to. I'm sorry. What did you say? What did you say?
You just said interesting. And I don't know.
You have to import it?
What is interesting?
You did import it.
I know. We're defining something before we can. The first objective here on line 5. Remember, in the context of this test, right? We just want to write a test that makes sure that our component renders another component inside of it. Okay, let's just do that. Renders another component inside of it. Okay, I'm gonna fix this right here. Okay, it renders a component inside of it. We'll say const wrapper equals shallow. We'll give it the argument of our component, and then we'll say const. Fuck, I don't remember this one.
Render component.
Contains. It has to contain something. I'm gonna look at the cheat, guys. I'm sorry. Okay, that's what it is. Okay, that's what it is. Say again. You talking about wrapper?
No, the content product list. We can name it anything because we're gonna code it.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say. We don't know what it's gonna like. This could be a product list. It could be a candidate list. It could be a movie list. The objective here is to write a test that shows that our app is going to render some component inside of it. Huh?
Content component.
Renders another component inside of it. That's what the description is, okay? Let's write a failing test first, okay? I keep forgetting how to do this. Okay, we found it. Okay, so now we're gonna do expect. Oh my God. Wrapper dot find. And what's the component that we want to render, guys? Product list. So we're saying, guys, what is wrapper.find product list.length? What do you guys think it says? What is it saying? That's really close, right? That's really close. So this is one type of different thing that we can call. What's the context of this right here? What are you trying to say here?
You want to take you have that component, right?
Yes.
Example.
Has class is not checking for a component. Has class is checking whether or not a component has a class name. Has like div class name. It's saying like, hey, this right here. Does it have class name here? Okay. So guys, right now on line 9, on the right, how many product list components do we have rendered inside of app? So on 13, when we find this app when we wrap our app and we do find product list, right? And we do dot length, what do we expect that number to be? Okay, let's try it. Save. So now we see, what's the complaint here, guys? Product list is not defined. The reason why that is, I intentionally made this mistake, is because we haven't imported it yet. We gave you guys the freebie import from app, right? Oops. But we also need to import product list. So we're inside app.test.js. So we're gonna do product list. And we're gonna go into our components. We're gonna go to product list. We save it. I know. Hold on. We're writing failing tests. We're writing failing tests, guys. We want our test to fail. Okay? Okay, so now it seems cannot find module components / product list from app test.js. Did we do this right? Save. Product list Components product list.
There's the chat.
Yes, where is it? Who sees it?
Name file.
Right here, guys. We spelled the product file, the file wrong. Yes. I didn't do that on purpose, but oops. Shit. Oh shit. Oh shit.
Shit, what? We done.
Fuck. Okay, I'm about to delete this. Okay, save. Okay, save. Okay, so now we have a new problem. It says cannot find module product list from app.test.js. However, Jest was able to find components product list.js. Okay, so what do we do wrong here, guys? Components. Why is this not working? Components. Components product list. I'm confused. Why is this not working? Contains my equal signs true. It's telling us to do the file extensions. I think I skipped the step and setup, guys. 1 second. We did the adapter. We did npm install. We set up tests. Okay, 1 second. I think the objective here. The problem here is that we haven't imported in our app.js. That's what my hypothesis is. So we're in app.js. We also need to import product lists, right? So we save, we run. Why does this keep? So what the problem was that we did not properly import the file into our app.js. Okay, guys, so what did we just do, guys? Someone please recap for me. Please help me out here. What's line 12 through 15 doing? In more detail. Tell me in more detail.
I don't understand why we have to import product list in the app test while we check the app.js.
That's what you call it.
Because of line.
You refer to that product list?
Because of line 15.
Yeah.
There are a bunch of rules. I don't know them all. I want us to look at examples. And I'm not telling you that because I don't want to teach you. I'm telling you that because I think that's the best way to remember how to write code. If you gave me a book, I promise you, guys, I'm going to bring in my React book, okay? I'm going to bring in my React book. I'm going to put it right here. I'm going to see who reads it. This book is 900 pages long, okay? It's 900 pages long. I have a React book at home. I'll bring it in for you guys.
How old is it? What year did it?
I bought it yesterday. Or not yesterday, last year. Last year. What I'm trying to say here, guys, is there's a bunch of little rules that we learn as we go. You know, that's just what it boils down to. And I'm trying to show you guys everything that I know. And I believe it that, like, guys, reading a book is not going to help you guys, or it can help you become a better developer. But I really fundamentally believe the most efficient way to do this is that when you have a problem, Google it, look at an example. You know, like that's literally like, I don't know how to say. That's not the best way. I don't know the best way. If I knew the best way, what would I be, guys? A billionaire. We were just talking about this. I really want to know how to build software well. That's what works for me, and I think that's what works for most people as well. Is Googling it and finding examples. That's why on the internet, guys, when you guys read tutorials, almost all tutorials are going to have an example, right? You could talk about programming all day, but if you don't have some actual code for someone to read and see what line goes where, when you call this function, what arguments are passed to it, like, it's very difficult to understand. Okay, so we wrote a test that basically it tested to make sure that our app component rendered a product list component inside of it. Okay? Remember, this it takes two arguments. A string as the first argument that describes the test. The second one is a function that executes when we're testing. We had to use something magical from Shallow. I don't know what it does, but I Googled it, and then I saw this documentation that said this is how you use it. You wrap your component, and then it gives you some free stuff. Specifically, it said that you can use it almost like jQuery. Who here remembers jQuery? Who here has used jQuery? Anyone? I remember a couple of you guys did it. Okay. It's okay, man. You don't need to use jQuery anymore. jQuery is irrelevant now. Okay, so we got some tasks. Okay, guys. So let's think about our application, okay? Let's think about our application. What do we have so far? We have an app component that has a component inside of it, a product list component. What does a product list component probably do? What does it probably do? Exactly. So that's a good guess, man. What else would it do? It wouldn't like send API requests. Why would we call it product list if we're making API requests with this component? It doesn't make any sense, right? The reason why I'm asking you guys these questions is because in the future, one day you guys are gonna jump into a code base and like you guys are gonna need to figure out what does what. And guess what? Your boss is not gonna sit there and tell you, hey, this component does this. No, he's not gonna do that. He's gonna say, figure that shit out. Here's the code. Go fucking poking around. And this is what I want you guys to think about. So anyway, our product list component, it's probably gonna render out a bunch of items inside of it. So let's write a test that simply looks at our product list component and make sure that it renders correctly. So we've written 2 tests in this file. We've written 2 tests. We don't want to write all our tests in here. We want to write individual files for individual components that write tests. You guys have seen this one already, remember at that test.js? But we've never actually used them. So let's go and create one now. We create a new file called product list.test.js. Okay? So we're gonna copy all this over here, and then we're gonna need to change these paths, I think. Yeah, we need to change the products here and the app. We're no longer testing the app component. We don't need to do this anymore, okay? So let's just leave this. So now we're gonna test our product list. Okay, that seems good. What do we want to test about the product list? We want to test that it has a property, right? It receives some data. So we need to create some fake data. Const mock data equals, we'll say, I'm gonna copy this because I don't want to make a mistake. So we got some products. We're selling some products. Why do I keep getting warnings? And we're gonna do what, guys? What are we about to do right here? What do we want to test? We want to test whether or not it gets a property or product list property. And we're gonna send that in. Oops, did I do this right? Okay, looks good. So how can we test to see that whether or not this works correctly? Well, when we send a product list component some data, which is an array and it has some objects, what do we expect to do with that, guys? What have we done with almost all of our components? Don't we like render some LIs to them? If we get a list of data, don't we have some LIs inside of them? Right? So we'll go ahead and do that. Let's just go ahead and stick one product list, a name in here. This.pops dot product list product list dot 0 dot name. So I expect if we were to run this application, we'd see one LI. So how can we write some tests that make sure that this component has an LI? I think we do contains. Yeah, I think that's what it was. Let's just look at the documentation. Jest contains okay. String. We're just looking for a component or JSX. Fuck. Contains. So once again, we're looking at examples, guys. Wrapper contains a div, blah blah blah. Okay. So let's just go ahead and copy this one right here. We'll copy expect wrapper.contains. What do we expect it to contain, guys? We expect it to contain at least one list item that says oranges, right? So it says cannot read property equal of undefined. Say again? To configure it after, you should call enzyme configure. The error right here says cannot read property equal of undefined. What do you guys think that means? It means that it couldn't find this right here. Let's think about this one. Let's just do one like the one that we've done before. Find li.
Why you put the cons product list here, not that?
But where's there?
I mean, in the product list JS, because you haven't import that cons into the product list JS, so it can read the prof, so it can return to the orange. Understand what I mean?
I know what you're saying. You're saying that lines 5 through 10 need to be in product list?
Yeah.
Well, I understand what you're saying, but the problem with that right there is not that, like, yes, you're right. You're 100% right. Product list needs to get some data for it to work correctly, right? That being said, the data doesn't matter. I don't know how to describe it. The data does not matter. What it is like we got to make sure that the component behaves correctly. And the reason why this isn't working correctly is, I don't know, one second. This type props. Oh, we don't have this. That's why. Save this motherfucker. We don't have props either. We got it over here. Save. It's not finding this correctly. I think that's also another problem.
You can try import product list from JS.
That's not what the issue is, man. Think about this, man. This is just a function of this is just the product component, right? If this product component is called, what is line 7 telling you? Line 7 is telling you, like, hey, man, I fucking expect to get a property called product list. I expect to get that. And I expect to be able to look at the first property element inside this array. I know it's an array from this bracket 0. And I expect to be able to call dot name on it. Okay? So if you guys look on line 13, that's exactly what we're doing. We're calling this component. We're calling it the component. We're passing it the product list property. And we're giving it some data. Okay? And now if we look at product list, the data that we pass it, we expect that the first object will have named oranges. Man, I'm gonna figure out how to do this. Product list. Find li.link to equal. Fuck, man, I always jumped over this. So let's just count how many we have first. I'm sorry, guys. Like, I need to read these more. Equal. I should have read these ones. This is actually quite confusing sometimes. Yeah, so let's read this one. So we're saying, hey, wrapper find so we look at the product list component, and because how many objects are we passing it inside a product list, guys?
Maybe you back to the previous version. You have 2 not equal. This is 2 equal. You write wrong.
But I wrote the wrong test. Okay, I'm jumping ahead. I'm sorry. I'm jumping ahead a little bit too much. Yeah. So we wrote a test that fails. Like, let's think about this, okay? What I used this as an example a second ago, right? Our product list component. We pass it a property product list. What is inside a product list? 4 objects. So a product list, like, let's think about this. In our Jest page or our GitHub issues page, right? If we got 20 elements inside of the response from the API, how many issues should we have? 20, right? We should have exactly as many as we have, right? That makes sense. So this test is gonna fail. Why? Exactly. We didn't write the component in such a way that it takes the props that it is given and then returns a bunch of li elements based on that. So if we save it and then we look at our tests, we receive undefined.
Put something in the
My bad.
Yes. One and two.
No, so let's think about this. Okay? What do we expect it to equal? How many elements is inside product list? So when we look at the component and we find the li elements and we count how many li elements there are, how many should we have? 4, right? So I'm pretty sure what the opening and the closing go together. That counts as one. Yeah, I think so. I'm pretty confident that's how it works. So let's test it. Let's just do 4, okay? That makes sense. We have 4 product list items, right? We send that to our product list as data. We expect that if it's given an array of 4 elements, it should have 4 li elements. That doesn't seem ridiculous to me. It seems about right. So let's jump over our tests. And we can see that we expected 4, but we only got 1. So how can we write our component to do what we expect it to do? Would that work? It does in fact work. But this is what we call a false positive. Okay? Would this component work in real life? How is it written right now? What if I gave it? Would it work how we expect it to work? If we gave it a product list of 100 items and it only looks at the first item every single time and it does .name on that item every single time, can the component ever render 5 LIs? Come on, guys. We've been writing components in React for 2 weeks now. Can this component render 5 LIs? Is it possible? How? How can it render 5 LIs right now? When I read this code, I can see it can never ever render 5 LIs. It can only ever render 4. How it's currently written. Who here agrees with me? It can only render 4. Right? That makes sense. How is this code ever going to render more than 4 li elements? It doesn't make sense to me. Exactly. This component sucks right now. This cannot work. This is not a reasonable expectation. Okay? So we can do something better. Props.product list .map. Correct. We're gonna map over this and return okay, and we'll do product.name. Okay, that seems to make sense. So if we save it and we look at our tests, we got a complaint. Another really good thing about testing is also it gives us a bunch of data. It tells us a lot of stuff that we should be doing to write better code. So right now it's saying each child in a list should have a unique key property. Who can help me fix this? Qua.
Go to
Sorry. Go to my test.
yeah.
What do you want me to do here?
They use password test.
Where should I put it? Should I put it up here?
No, inside the map.
Inside the map.
Yep, right here. Key equals product.id. We want every single time we run a mapping function, guys, we probably want to pass a key to the highest parent JSX element. Okay, just long story short, React does some magic for us. It makes our page run faster. I don't know why. I didn't write that code, but I don't need to know how to write that code. I don't need to have written that code to know how to use it. Those are 2 different problems we have. So we're gonna save it. We're gonna run it. We see green. This feels fucking good. Okay, I'm pretty fucking confident. No matter which one of you guys I give this to, you guys cannot break my application without knowing. If you guys can break my application, you guys can. Okay, so you guys can break it. That's why I added some additional data right there. Without knowing, okay? Without knowing that you broke it. No matter what you do to product list right now, I expect that if you guys fuck this up, you guys are gonna be warned. As a matter of fact, not only expect, when you guys work at a big company, I completely forgot to talk about this topic, right? Just like we saw a second ago, had 160,000 tests, 130,000 tests. I forgot how many there were. Yeah, it was 140 tests. I remember my previous company, Tiny Pulse, here in Lê Văn Sĩ. No, Lý Tự Trọng. That big VidCom. I worked on the 20th floor in that building for a while. That company, whenever I would submit code, the test took like between 2 to 3 hours to run because there were several thousand tests, and they had to set up a lot of data. We had to get all the users, we had to get the users' friends, and then we had to get all the users, other data, right? Their tickets, their receipts, etc. And these tests ran for between 2 to 3 hours, depending on how many of them we ran. And we would have to run these tests before we were allowed to submit our code to but GitHub, before we could submit our code to master. We could not get our code into the master branch without these tests passing. Okay? So know that in the future, you guys are gonna look at a screen that looks kind of like this a lot. We're gonna be looking at this a lot. We're gonna say, hey, did we break this? We got 20 other people that have been working on this project for the last 4 years. Lloyd just came in. Let's make sure he didn't break anything. Okay? All right. So we got this test working, right? We figured out the correct number of items. It renders the correct number of items. That's the word I chose last night. Renders the correct number of items. What's something else we could test on our application? We could test how much, I'm going to copy this, guys. I'm sorry, I'm too lazy. I'm going to write errors. Okay, so we wrote a test here. It renders the price for each item, right? So we can do the same setup. We call a function. We pass it the first argument, which is the description for the test, and the second argument, which is the function which we'll fire, which contains the test. Okay? So for this one right here, we have to do some additional steps, right? And like I said, this takes documentation. I promise you guys, I've never actually written Jest before last night. You guys believe me? But I have used another testing framework. I learned all the syntax last night. So we can do first product.text parentheses. That's going to give us the text inside of the first element, the first li that we find. Okay, find the first li. Okay, we can call that one first product. What the fuck is the text inside of it? What do we expect this to be? So right now I can tell you that this is going to fail because right here, this test is taking 1,000. It expects to find about 1,000 in there somewhere. This is called a regular expression. I'm sure some of you guys have seen or heard about this, regex, okay? A regular expression, okay? So if we save this test right now and we run it, we're gonna get a failure. And remember, that's good in TDD. We wanna see failures first. Do we pass it? Product list? Okay, that seems to work. Product list.map renders price for each product. This.pop. But we did product.price. Yeah, you're right. Eventually, that's what we want to do. We do want to have the product price right here, Phil. But right now, we got a bigger problem. Product list.map. I'm confused right now. Price for in.
Now it's not working.
Yeah, I'm super confused right now. Shallow product list. Product list, right. My bad. I copied from the thing. My bad, guys. I do that a lot. Okay, but that's okay. We're learning as we go, right? Okay, so here we are. We can see that our test failed, right? We expected to receive to match something like blah blah blah, but we got what, guys? Okay, so how can we fix this, guys? What can we do in product list? In product list, what can we do to fix this test? Look what it's expecting. It's expecting something that contains 1,000. Okay? But we're getting oranges. Let's look at our implementation of product list. Can we just do this right here?
Yeah.
We can do that right there, right? I think that's gonna pass. That passes, right? But is that the best way of doing this?
No.
False positive, exactly. Our test says it passed, but we don't want to have 1,000 in front of every single item that we have in our application, okay? We do not want that. So let's think about our test. Let's think slowly, think hard. We can see that the test on line 20, it's saying, hey product list, can you find your first LI? Find your LI, okay? Give me the first one. I expect this first product's text to have 1,000. So by the way that this test is written, my understanding is that like whatever is inside of this LI element should contain a price. We can do a name, that's cool. But let's go ahead and stick in a price as well. So let's do dollar, and then we'll do some curly braces. We'll do product.price. Okay? So now, like I don't even want to show you guys the UI because you gotta be thinking about what we're doing right now, okay? We're thinking about what we're doing. We're creating some LIs, it's gonna have a price, it's gonna have a name. So if we save it, should this pass? I think it should. And it does in fact pass. Is that clear, everyone? Is anyone here lost? Who's here? Is anyone here lost? Okay, so we're gonna do one more because I don't want to do all of them. Actually, no, these are the ones that are kind of difficult. I want you guys to do this one, okay? All right, so you guys have seen a quick introduction. Know that there are many different tests, okay? There's a couple easier ones on hand. There's ones that do very similar things that you guys have been doing a lot of the last 4 weeks, 5 weeks, okay? So read them carefully and... Yeah, of course I've recorded, yeah. Okay, so now you guys see what to do. You guys have any questions? All right,